I like him, he likes me. We get along, I respect him, he respects me. You could end up in a war. President Obama told me that. He said, the biggest problem, I don't know how to solve it. He told me he doesn't know how to solve it. I said, did you ever call him? No. Actually, he tried 11 times. But the man on the other side, the gentleman on the other side, did not take his call. Okay? Lack of respect. But he takes my call. This thing is all about a letter that was perfect. You never hear the letter anymore. It was all about whistleblowers. You never hear, what happened to the whistleblower? They're gone because they've been discredited. What happened to the informant? And where is the IG? Why didn't the IG read the letter, read the transcript? He could have gotten it, I guess, I assume. I would have declassified it for him if I had to do that. Why didn't he read this and then see that the whistleblower's account was totally different than the letter? Then he would have said, oh, there's no problem here. The whistleblower gave a false account. Now you have to say, well, do we have to protect somebody that gave a false account? You know, these whistleblowers, they have them like they're angels, okay? So do we have to protect somebody that gave a totally false account of my conversation? I don't know. You tell me. Do we have to protect the informant? Now, I happen to think there probably wasn't an informant. You know, the informant went to the whistleblower. The whistleblower had second and third hand information. You remember that. It was a big problem. But the information was wrong. So was there actually an informant? Maybe the informant was Schiff. It could be Shifty Schiff. In my opinion, it's possibly Schiff. Why didn't Schiff say that he and his staff or Hogan, why didn't he say that he met with the whistleblower? He knew all about the whistleblower. Why didn't he say? He's a crooked politician. Very bad for our country. This whole thing is very bad for our country. In the midst of that, I'm trying to get out of wars. And we may have to get in wars, too. Okay? We may have to get in wars. We're better prepared than we've ever been. If Iran does something, they'll be hit like they've never been hit before. I mean, we have things that we're looking at. But can you imagine? I have to fight off these lowlives. At the same time, I'm negotiating these very important things that should have been done during Obama and Bush and even before that. All right? So that's where we are right now. So I think they want to impeach me because it's the only way they're going to win. They got nothing. All they have is a phone call that was perfect. All they have is a whistleblower who's disappeared. Where is he? He's gone. Then they have a second whistleblower. The second whistleblower's got, where is he? He disappeared. Then they have an informant. Oh, the informant is, where is he? They're interviewing ambassadors who I've never heard of. I don't know who these people are. I never heard of them. And I have great respect for some of them. One of them said just recently, a very, very highly respected man, I'm not going to get into their names, but said, no, we were very, very bothered by Joe Biden and his son. Back during the Obama administration, he said, he's supposed to be their witness. Don't forget, many of these people were put there during Obama, during Clinton, during the Never-Trumper Bush era. You know, you had a Never-Trumper Bush. You have heard of those. Those people might be worse than the Democrats, the Never-Trumpers. The good news is they're dying off fast. They're on artificial respiration, I think. But no, impeachment, they want to impeach, and they want to do it as quick as possible. And that's pretty much the story.
I'm going to do something I've never done. I want to read the transcript. Because everyone talks about whistleblowers, non-whistleblowers.
You're going to do that, it's fine.
You know, okay, it says, I'd like you to do us a favor. Now, you were first talking about congratulations, relationship. I'd like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot. Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation. Ukraine, they say CrowdStrike. And I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server, they say Ukraine has it. A lot of things that went on, the whole situation. You say, I think that you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people, I would like to have the Attorney General call you or your people, and I'd like to get to the bottom of it.
And by the way, so just so you understand, that's perfect. And we're looking at the 2016 election, which was a disaster. We went through hell, my administration. People were destroyed, their lives were destroyed. Not one person colluded. They found no collusion, no nothing. And they went through hell. There was a server, the DNC server, that never went to the FBI. The FBI didn't take it. It was taken by somebody that I guess it's CrowdStrike, that's what I've heard. And referring to that, that's not for an election that's going into the future. That's for a past election that was a catastrophe. And it was a very unfair situation. And after 2.5 years or 2 years, they found no collusion, no nothing.
4 investigations.
Oh, many
You have the
investigations.
FBI, you have House Intel, bipartisan Senate, and then Mueller investigation.
That's right. Many investigations. That's all they did is investigations. And yet we've had one of the most successful administrations in history, certainly in the last 2.5 years, in the first 2.5 years of the administration. All of this horrible stuff, and then you hear about Ukraine, and you've been hearing about it. I heard Clinton was involved. I heard they got somebody who wrote the fake dossier. Was it out of Ukraine? All of the things that happened. And I assume that the Attorney General, I would like the Attorney General to find out what's going on. Because you know what? We're investigating corruption. And I actually heard Greg Jarrett and numerous people the other day say, I have an obligation to do that. That's not a question, can I do it or don't I do it? We have an obligation to investigate corruption. And that's what it was. In my opinion, that's what it was, is corruption. And if Ukraine would know something about the 2016 election, you have to give that information. I hope that they would give the information. And everybody agrees with me 100%. But when I look at experts that are on your show, and other experts, they're all saying you have an obligation to do that.
I think makes your point. You say, as you saw yesterday, the whole nonsense ended with a very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller, an incompetent performance, but they say a lot of it started with Ukraine. Whatever you can do, it's very important. Here's my question.
And it did. It ended with a very poor performance. And this is after more than 2 years of an investigation where they spent $45 million or something like that. They had 2,500 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, all because probably Hillary Clinton said, just like she did with Tulsi Gabbard, just like she did with Jill Stein. She said, Jill Stein is a Russian asset. Now, I don't know Jill Stein. I know her as an environmentalist, okay, and probably a good woman. The last thing she is a Russian asset. I don't know Tulsi Gabbard, but I know one thing. She's not an asset of Russia. These people are sick. There's something wrong with them. They do a fake dossier that was probably meant to get out. I mean, I think definitely meant to get out before the election so that they could affect the election. And look at the people that wrote it. And look at where they came from. And look at the wife of the man that works, I won't even mention names, at the Department of Justice. And she's on the payroll of the company that Robert Mueller never heard of during his testimony.
Fusion GPS.
Think of it. Never heard of the company. They said, you know, Fusion GPS? He didn't know. I didn't know what was going on here. That's after spending 45.
He didn't know that Hillary Clinton's attorney at the Clinton Foundation was on his team.
Look, the whole thing was a disgrace, and they destroyed a lot of people. They ruined their lives, and what went on was absolutely corrupt. And let's see what ultimately happens. Let's see what, because this should never happen to our country again. Let me tell you, sure.
Yeah.
This should never happen to our country again, and this should never happen to a president again. Look, the Washington Post, which is a fake deal, the Washington Post puts out a story, I guess on Inauguration Day, a few hours after the Inauguration Day, essentially saying, and now the impeachment begins. Hillary Clinton saying 2 days ago, Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset, and that Jill Stein is a Russian agent. And I said, wait a minute, it took me 2.5 years. I wish you would have said that earlier, because people would have realized she's crazy. She's crazy. But 2.5 years, Sean, we went through this, and it started before the election. And President Obama in September was told about Russian influence, and he didn't want to do anything about it. He didn't want to do a thing about it because he assumed Hillary was going to win. So he didn't do a thing about it. Nobody brings that up. Nobody brings up his statement to the president of Russia at the time. Nobody brings it up as the whispers across about, I'll see you after the election. It's a very double standard. It's a very sad thing. Hunter Biden was thrown under the net.
Why was he given that money? Would anyone else get that money?
It's a payoff. My opinion, it's a payoff. Why else would it be? Look, Hunter Biden with no experience. Now, I hear the number's $168,000 a month, and I heard they got a $3 million payment.
Split between him and another guy.
They get a $3 million payment and all of this, okay? And that's corruption. That's something has to be investigated. That's what you have to look. But I watched this crazy Anderson Cooper the other day during the debate. Apologize for having to ask the question to them. Apologize. If that were me...
He declared his innocence.
If that were my sons that took $168,000 from this very questionable company, an energy company, and they knew nothing about energy at all. He knew nothing about energy, and he has a bad record, bad track record, including getting thrown out of the Navy. And even the way he got in the Navy is interesting in his position. If that were Don Jr., if that were Eric Trump, who are very outstanding young men, it would be the biggest story of the century. You have a lot of people from Clinton and from Obama, and you also have never Trumpers from Bush. You know, I can understand that Bush isn't exactly loving me, because we took on the Clinton family and we took on the Bush family and we beat them both. You know, two, I guess you'd call them dynasties, right? That's called a dynasty. But we beat them both.
Effort to censure House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff failing tonight. All Democrats voted against the resolution while all Republicans voted in favor. Republicans have taken issue with Schiff's handling of the impeachment inquiry sparked by President Trump's July phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Well, a nail-biter in Canada as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau fights to hold on to power. All polls will close shortly, but Trudeau has been running a very tight race against Conservative leader Andrew Scheer. That's partly due to some recent scandals, including a series of old photos showing Trudeau in blackface.
His office was in contact with the whistleblower, the hearsay whistleblower, before they ever filed the complaint that sparked the entire inquiry. Schiff is on tape lying about that contact and the seedy communications. Now, Schiff doesn't want this individual to testify. And why would that be? Because then the so-called non-whistleblower would be forced to answer questions about the whistleblower's relationship with Schiff's office. Like, I have a few questions. When did you start communicating with Schiff's office? Did Schiff's office advise you to get an attorney? Did that attorney write any portion of the complaint? Did Schiff's office advise you to contact the IG? How did you get your third-party hearsay information? And let's all remember one important fact. This is a secret investigation over a public transcript. The irony is, we don't need a hearsay whistleblower. Trump, much to their surprise and chagrin, released the entire transcript. Look at your screen. No quid pro quo whatsoever. Now, where is the crime here? Where? The favor, I need a favor, has nothing to do with creepy, crazy, sleepy Uncle Joe Biden and nothing to do with the 2020 elections. Biden was mentioned in passing later in the phone call. But if you look at the paragraphs that are supposedly to be so pertinent, the president is clearly referring to Ukrainian election interference in the 2016 election. Look at what political outline, January 11, 2017. They're not members of the vast right-wing conspiracy. The country Ukraine tried their best to get Hillary Clinton elected. Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter, only to back away after the election, and they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors. Now, this gets even better, because the report goes on to detail a clear example of, yes, Ukrainian DNC collusion, and a Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting for the Democratic National Committee met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump campaign aide Paul Manafort, and Russia, according to people with direct knowledge of the situation. Now, hang on a second. We just spent, 3 years, the media mob, Democrats, breathlessly reporting, screaming about election interference, and this is a big deal, and we can't have this in the country. Okay, then they should all be thanking President Trump for getting to the bottom of the DNC colluding with Ukraine to interfere in the 2016 elections to help Hillary. And by the way, it's important to remember one more thing about the president's phone call with Ukraine. And the president said, I'd like you to do us a favor. Okay, what's a favor? Okay, there were no strings attached. Zero quid pro quo. Doesn't exist. Because during the call, the government of Ukraine had no idea the U.S. had temporarily delayed aid, and they still got the aid. Plus, the aid was never attached to anything, nothing, and that's clear in the transcript, especially related to sleepy, creepy Uncle Joe, especially related to the 2020 election. And let's be clear, the term do us a favor, well, we all have go-to phrases. I'll say you know a lot. The president uses them all the time, kind of a verbal aside. I can prove my point. Take a look.
She just did me a beautiful favor, keeping it a beautiful Sikorsky plant open in the great state of Pennsylvania. I'm talking to your ambassador. Jared was there. Jason Greenblatt was there. I said, fellas, do me a favor. You're doing us a favor because of the great job you're doing. And they called and they said, could you possibly make it another day? And we delayed it 2 weeks. So we did them a favor, but they're doing us a favor. But they're buying a lot of agricultural products.
I said, would you do me a favor? The remains of these great fallen heroes, can we do something? He agreed to it immediately.
Big league for the president. So to recap, the term do me a favor, that's a phrase the president uses. We've identified hundreds of times. No conditions whatsoever. You can look at the transcript of the phone call. No quid pro quo. Look at the transcript. No high crime, no misdemeanor, no bribery, no treason. But that doesn't matter to the left and their friends in the mob. When the president says, and we went over this in my opening monologue tonight, when the president says, can you do me a favor? Now, we've identified hundreds of times. That happens to be one of the president's transition phrases, and we have the tape. Right. Could you do me a favor? Then he talks about the 2016 election interference of Ukraine, confirmed by Politico, January 11, 2017. Isn't also one of his constitutional duties, a sworn oath, to faithfully execute the laws of the land? And I just heard everyone so upset about election interference with Trump and Russia, I would think they'd be on board wanting to help Trump get to the truth. But that's not the case, is it?
Not one Democrat has suggested that President Trump is being treated unfairly when it violates every basic principle of due process. We gave about $400 million a year to the Ukraine in aid. So here's the question. Is the Politico article accurate? Is somebody looking at DNC involvement with Ukraine in 2016 as they looked at Trump and Russia? Somebody needs to do that. So it's not unfounded for the president to be concerned about Ukrainian interference in our election if you believe the Politico article. But here's the point. We're talking about impeaching the President of the United States, destroying a mandate from the people, a political death sentence, and he is not entitled to know who his accusers are. He can't call a witness on his behalf, and he can't cross-examine those who are coming forward, and it's all done behind closed doors without public scrutiny. This is illegitimate.
Thank you, sir.
First, over the past few nights, we've been laying out the coordinated effort by a cabal of diplomatic and intel bureaucrats to upend the presidency of Donald Trump. Now, when the president called them out for their catastrophic failures of process and policy, they were offended. When he demanded that NATO countries stop free-riding on the U.S. taxpayers, they were horrified. And when he began making good on his promise to bring home our troops, they were shocked. And when the deep state's insurance policy and Russia collusion narrative imploded, they decided to bring in reinforcements. And of course, they found them in the House, where Democrats are furiously trying to construct an abuse of power article of impeachment. I have a question. If Trump is so obviously off the rails, why not hold their fake impeachment inquiry out in the open? Sunlight is, after all, the best political disinfectant. Well, easy answer. The closed-door shuffle allows Democrats to preset the theme of each witness, spin the secret testimony, cherry-pick, then leak the phrases most favorable to their impeachment narrative. Acting Ambassador to Ukraine Bill Taylor, a never-Trumper himself, had his turn in the Star Chamber today.
It's not even noon, right? And this is my most disturbing day in Congress so far. Very troubling.
The testimony was explosive. I will say that this is the top witness that we've heard from so far.
And he gave a tremendous testimony today.
Spin. But sources familiar with the testimony tell Fox News that Taylor didn't offer any new evidence and had zero firsthand knowledge or direct evidence of the quid pro quo that Democrats claimed was a slam dunk. But this isn't about the truth. This is about just confirming a thesis, regardless of the fact that, for instance, the Ukraine president said there was no pressure applied to him and no quid pro quo. Which brings us to the media. They've been aching for impeachment since election night, and thus will parrot whatever Adam Schiff spits out. No questions asked.
It's entirely possible that this day may turn out to be one of the most consequential days in the impeachment inquiry.
Donald Trump's impeachment may have been turbocharged today by the testimony of career diplomat Bill Taylor.
Bill Taylor was not just a smoking gun. This was a smoking howitzer.
That's from Max Headroom. And it gets better. They don't just publish articles with completely anonymous sources. Last year, remember, the New York Times published an entire op-ed written by an anonymous, supposedly a senior Trump official, who even claimed to be himself part of the resistance, patriotic resistance. Well, of course, Mr. or Ms. Courageous also shopped a book deal. It drops next month. According to the publisher, the author sees this as an act of conscience and of duty. What a crock. Every anti-Trumper tattler is depicted as a selfless saint in the media. This, though, it all smacks of desperation to me. The left's hatred for this president has been well documented. But what they are now openly signaling is that they don't like you, the American voter, either. They don't trust you to deliver a result that they want. So they will try to remove this entire process from your hands altogether. The president won election nearly 3 years ago as an outsider, and I was thinking about this, and I think today, ironically, he's still kind of an outsider. I mean, that the bipartisan establishment, they never accepted him as legitimate. Now, this despite his stellar economic record number of judges confirmed, and the leadership he's shown against the China threat. He's still a disruptor. He's still the ultimate Rorschach test for the old guard. The better America does under Trump, the more negatively they think that reflects on the so-called experts who for decades squandered American prosperity for a globalist fantasy. So if they can impeach Trump, even on a bogus narrative teased out in secret, the permanent resistance can say, "See, I told you so," and feel vindicated. This is their revenge. Yet, as usual, they underestimate the common sense of the American people, who may just have their own revenge against the globalist impeachment mob on November 2nd, 2020.
whistleblower. And so I'm going to have a few of my colleagues give remarks, and then we're going to try to go in there, and we're going to try to figure out what's going on behalf of the millions of Americans that we represent that want to see this Congress working for them and not obsessed with attacking a president who we believe has not done anything to deserve impeachment. Now the Republican whip, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Matt. What is Adam Schiff trying to hide? I think that's a question so many people have, so many of my colleagues have, so many people in the press should have, is through those hidden closed doors over there, Adam Schiff is trying to impeach a president of the United States behind closed doors, literally trying to overturn the results of the 2016 election a year before Americans get to go to the polls to decide who's going to be the president. And frankly, it should be the people of this country who decide who's going to be the president, not Nancy Pelosi and not Adam Schiff in secret behind closed doors. The fact that Adam Schiff won't even let the press in, you can't even go in and see what's going on in that room. Voting members of Congress are being denied access from being able to see what's happening behind these closed doors where they're trying to impeach the President of the United States with a one-sided set of rules. They call the witnesses. They don't let anybody else call the witnesses. They don't even let the President's legal counsel question people who are making baseless allegations. Maybe in the Soviet Union, this kind of thing is commonplace. This shouldn't be happening in the United States of America, where they're trying to impeach a president in secret behind closed doors. The American people deserve better. We will demand better for the American people.
American people are being shut out. House Democrats are bypassing constitutional norms and basic standards of due process with their impeachment obsession. It has been said, but bears repeating. The president is not above justice, but as you know, neither is he below it. Facing your accusers, the ability to call rebuttal witnesses, cross-examination, the right to object evidence, and ability to attend hearings, depositions, and interviews. These are basic standards that every American should expect, including the President of the United States, who is currently being the target of an angry mob, a willing media machine, and a twisted version of an impeachment process that didn't begin 2 months ago, that began day one of this administration. It is a sham, and it's time for it to end.
Yeah, let me just tell you something. You should be outraged if you're an American at what's happening here. You should be allowed to confront your accusers. This is being held behind closed doors for a reason, because they don't want you to see what the witnesses are like. Let me give you an example. Recently we had the Mueller. Mr. Mueller came in to give a report to Judiciary. You were there. You saw it. The American people saw it. You know why Mr. Mueller's report fell apart and why we knew that there was nothing there? Because we got to observe Mr. Mueller himself testify. Because when he was asked questions, you could see he didn't understand what had happened in his own investigation. You saw him flipping through pages. You get to see who is accusing you. When you're denied that, you might as well be living in the former Soviet Union.
I've sat through all the depositions. I'm about to go back into Adam Schiff's bunker here in the Capitol basement to sit through another deposition today. I want all of my colleagues to know every single question that's been asked and every answer that's been told. I want all of my constituents and their constituents to know every question that's been asked and every answer that's been told. What is happening behind closed doors is unclassified. There's no reason why the American public shouldn't be able to watch this in real time live. This is a process lacking legitimacy, credibility, and fairness. And we have a huge problem with that. One fun fact from yesterday. I saw that the opening statement leaked. This is what happens. This is the Democrats' strategy. They like to cherry pick leaks. Turn to page 12. The only reference to Joe Biden, other than one reference to the July 25th transcript. In that one reference, it's not firsthand from Ambassador Taylor. It's not secondhand from Ambassador Taylor. It's not third-hand from Ambassador Taylor. Y'all are making a big deal of Ambassador Taylor telling him that Tim Morrison told him, that Sondland told Morrison, that the president told Sondland, that the president told Zelensky. Give me a break. On the process and the substance, this whole thing has been a joke. And I appreciate my colleagues for having today's press conference. They deserve answers. My constituents deserve answers. I'd like to bring up Mo Brooks.
One of the judicial defects foisted on the American people by Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. The use of secretive, infamous Star Chamber type proceedings in the Capitol's basement rather than public proceedings where the American people can see for themselves firsthand the railroad job being presided over by Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chairman Adam Schiff. The American people deserve a public and open process. Bear in mind the significance of what we're talking about here today. We are a republic. Close to 1 million Americans have fought in wars beginning with the Revolutionary War to give us the right to control our own destiny. And what the Socialist Democrats seek to do today is to thwart, to disregard, to repudiate the votes of 60 million Americans in the 2016 election.
I'll just say this, why don't we know? Why don't we know who the person is who started this whole charade that Adam Schiff is now doing in the bunker of the basement of the Capitol? If you look at the whistleblower's complaint, page 1 of the complaint, he talks about more than half a dozen individuals who formed the basis of his complaint. We have no idea who these folks are. As I said last night on the floor of the House, 435 members of the House representing over 300 million Americans, and the only one of those 435 who know the individuals who started this whole thing, the only one is Adam Schiff. Why don't the rest of us know? More importantly, why don't the American people know? I think the American people, as I said before, they understand fairness, and they instinctively know that what is happening here is not fair. And that's why I want to applaud my colleagues, Whip Scalise and Matt Gaetz and the rest of the team here for standing up and saying, look, it's time that we know who started this whole thing. The more than half a dozen folks he referenced and said over the past 4 months, more than half a dozen people have informed me about this complaint that he filed. Who are those people? We've had 7 witnesses to date. I don't think any of them have been the ones that the whistleblower, the so-called whistleblower, was referring to. So we need to hear from them, and we need this done in the open so the American people can see.
Listen, for 2 years, Adam Schiff told the American people that he had evidence, proof, that President Trump had colluded with Russia. And then we find out after 2 years, $25 million or more spent, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 interviews, that no, that was not the case. And then Adam Schiff on public TV says, no, our office didn't have any coordination. We didn't hear at all from this whistleblower. And then that turns out to be false. And then in a committee hearing, he makes up a totally made-up conversation between President Trump and the Ukrainian president, I assume to try to deceive the American public. And now, he wants us to believe that he's like a special counsel in these closed-door meetings over here that I can't go into as a member of the Judiciary Committee, and that even Republican members on the committee can't even see the transcripts. This is totally unjust. It's totally unfair. There was no vote on the floor of the House of Representatives, as has been done in the past, to authorize this impeachment inquiry with a standard set of rules and due process procedures that any American citizen should get, let alone the President of the United States.
Colleagues on this committee can't even bring their own witnesses back, and they can't even speak about what is going on in there. Yet the Democrats come out and they tell what is going on. They leak certain quotes that they select to create a narrative that they want to control, that they want to put forth to the American public as a lie, with one goal in mind, to undo the election, to undo the voice of the American people from a few years ago, and to deny the American people the truth, to deny us the truth, to deny me the truth. As a member of Congress, I cannot see the testimony that was provided there from Ambassador Volker. I have requested it. I am a member of Congress. I represent over 760,000 Missourians. I represent their views. So it's time, and I call, and my colleagues call upon the Democrats to open up this process, to be fair, to shine a light on it for the American public, for posterity, and because there's so much at stake. And I call upon them to get things done, like pass the USMCA, which will create 176,000 jobs, $63 billion worth of economic activity. I think that's what we should be focusing on, and not trying to impeach a president for something he hasn't even been found guilty of.
Remember, Speaker Pelosi, this government, through its legislature, is of the people, by the people, for the people. Speaker Pelosi has tyrannically commandeered the House of Representatives. It is as if she thinks the founders wanted a government of Pelosi, by Pelosi, for Pelosi. America, whatever you believe about our president, you must realize that senior Democrat leadership in the House is ignoring the founding principles of our democracy. We need the House to vote on this, and it must be done in transparency. As the good book says, those things done in secret are from darkness. These elites, who care nothing for the people, must hear from the people. Call Speaker Pelosi and demand an end to this threat, this violation of freedom and democracy.
I, as a sitting member of Congress, have been asking for weeks to have access to these transcripts, to have access to Kurt Volker's transcript, and you all know more about it than I do. You all who are not elected in the media. I am, representing nearly 1 million Floridians, and I can't see it. Is that fair? Is that worthy of the sacrifice of the men and women who have died for this country? I would think not. And you know what rings loud and clear to me is a veteran back home who said, all you politicians do is fight. All you do is fight amongst each other. You're doing nothing for me. You're doing nothing for the care that I fought to deserve. You're doing nothing to defend this country. You're doing nothing to move my family's life forward to do a better place. And here we are all fighting over this unfair process. It's a shame. It's not worthy. We can do better as Americans, and Americans expect us to do better. Thank you.
If a government can do this to the President of the United States, they can do it to you as well. You need to be scared. You need to be very scared. This needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. We need open government. This is the United States of America. Please, I beg of you, pay attention, stay focused, keep your eye on the ball. What is happening here? We cannot allow this to go on. Adam Schiff has to stop. Nancy Pelosi has to stop. This process has got to stop, and it has to stop now.
Gentlemen, I call upon you to call upon Adam Schiff, to call upon the Speaker, to make these processes public. We have great work to be done in the United States. We were elected to serve the people and to do their work. We're not doing that now. We're doing a grave injustice to this nation. Who benefits? North Korea, Russia, China. They're looking at us and laughing at us, making a mockery of democracy. That's what this is. It's a mockery. Please, for the sake of America, let us end this injustice and move on with the work of the people.
We're going to go and see if we can get inside. So let's see if we can get in. We're going in.